What up my MMA homies? I'm back again, to study some fights, and throw more fighters under the bus. This weekend, the UFC's Golden Goose is on display. And the challenge for an opportunistic troll like me, is finding something controversial to trigger, divide, and stir up the MMA fanbase. Now, hating Conor has become such a mainstream thing, ironically, elevating him has become the unpopular thing to do, so be prepared folks, for some major elevation. Of course, this type of worship takes its mental toll. And thus, I have been making miniatures of this guy, as a form of therapy for my soul. So, if you want to support these studies, and contribute to my Conor Addiction Treatment Fund, do check out the link below. Use BJJSCOUT, to get $10 off. Anyways, let's first look at what Dustin likes to get up to in the cage. Dustin's a natural right-hander, using a southpaw stance. And his offense is primarily geared towards setting up his left cross. In particular, he likes to step in, to get outside foot, to throw his left lead. After that left lead, he also likes to follow up with some combos. He's not a sophisticated jabber, and primarily uses it to set up his left. Like here, where he jabs first, before throwing the left. If you try to run early as he steps in, Dustin also likes to follow up with kicks to catch you. Sometimes, if he doesn't want to step in, he'll throw some heavy open side kicks. He's not a big user of head kicks though. Dustin likes to also drop for takedowns, sometimes after throwing his left. Or just a quick level change, if the circumstances allow it. Because his right leg is his penetration leg, takedowns can come out of nowhere, making rushing him dangerous. In terms of footwork though, Dustin isn't one for taking creative angles, or sublime cage craft. He's mainly looking to get outside foot position, a common tactic in open stance matchups. That being said, there is one nice nuance about his left hand, that comes from deception in his feet. Often, Dustin will make it seem like he is going to take a normal step with his left. Here you can see, Dustin looks like he is about to take a step forward with his left. Instead, he leads forward, and his left hand launches. Most people are tuned to the opponent's lead foot movement, as a cue to danger. Because there is no movement to signal him stepping in, and no tell in his shoulder, Dustin often surprises folk trying to bull rush, or corner him. Now, this tricky lead left is useful defensively, but the core of Dustin's defense is his shelling. This is his go-to, when he senses danger, and because he is so well covered up, it's not easy to hit him clean. Dustin is also good at quickly retreating while he covers up, so it's not easy to tag him to his body either. So, if I could sum up Dustin's meta, he likes to get in front of you, throw some heavy shots, and be out of there before you can counter. Because of his shelling, even if you can land when you lead, or when you counter, he's pretty well covered up anyway. Colloquially, Dustin's like an armored tank doing guerrilla warfare. In and out, throwing serious power. If you think you can throw more volume than him, like Max or Justin thought they could, you are up against a well-covered target, that is well prepared for a long drawn-out war of attrition. Indeed, this strategy has proven successful, and his record speaks for itself. But when I look at this, I see someone that has grown so reliant on this successful tactic, that he hasn't found the need to address the liabilities that this strategy also carries. So what do I mean precisely? Let's first look at his offense. Dustin is a volume puncher, looking to rely on his shelling, to eventually wear you down. When he can land successfully, and you can't hit him back enough, it's a good night for him. But, when he can't spam his A game, and lead with his power, he doesn't really have a very outstanding plan B, to fall back on. This is what happened in that Khabib fight. Note, it's dangerous to expose your centerline to a wrestler's penetration step. And out of character, you will see, Dustin never takes that characteristic bold outside step, in order to throw his power. This is because one quick level change by Khabib, and Dustin could get taken down. When he did step in, he was always trying to hide his centerline from Khabib's penetration step. His main weapon taken away, coupled with his general lack of lateral movement and check hooks, to at least generate some offense, to dissuade Khabib's advance, meant an early demise. Though Dustin got exposed in that Khabib fight, I don't think Dustin fears a takedown threat from Conor, so I expect Dustin to be spamming his A game. But, as you will see below, I feel this exactly what Conor wants. Now, I want to look at the defensive issues Dustin is carrying into this fight. Dustin has been getting away with his shelling and retreating so far. Even the loss to Khabib hasn't really exposed the costs of using such defensive tactics versus a striker that knows what he is doing. I suspect when people see someone quick to cover, they think, wow, Dustin's being defensively responsible, a buzzword I see thrown about a lot. But effective defense isn't just about blocking. You can also use slips. Heck, you can even block and slip at the same time. All these options come with costs and benefits. Just because someone doesn't shell much, doesn't mean they have less defense. As I've already shown in this video series, using just slips and footwork, the strike tally racked up on you can be very low. To put things bluntly, relative to Conor at least, Dustin is flat-footed, and is frequently caught on his front foot after throwing his power. When stuck on his front foot, because shelling is his primary defense, rather than slips and footwork, his hands are out of position to throw in pocket exchanges. As a result, relative to Conor, he will be the inferior counter-puncher. Something he will need to do when he can't lead during the fight, and has to generate some offense off the back foot. More dangerous, because he's not slipping much, he has very little head movement in the pocket, and is providing a constant target for a counter-puncher. Yes, his guard is up, but given enough chances, an accurate puncher will find his way through the gaps. Early on in his career, these ingredients spelled his doom in the Michael Johnson and Conor fights, so let's look at them for a bit. In the Johnson fight, when Dustin was stepping in with his left hand, and at risk of being countered, he was relying on his guard, rather than slipping. Relying on shelling only, as opposed to taking his head of a center line, is risky against the wrong opponent. Every time Dustin was in the pocket, his head was a stationary target for Michael. Give a fast powerful counter-puncher enough chances with his right hook, and he'll eventually beat you to the punch. Dustin gets tagged by Johnson, also a southpaw by the way, and finished with the follow-up left hand. Now, let's look at the first Conor fight. Rather than slipping and looking to counter, Dustin's first instinct is to cover up, as he steps in after throwing his left. Throughout the fight, he's looking to either flee, or rely on his blocking as he flees. A little later, Dustin gets caught on his front foot. Rather than try to slip the punch, Dustin quickly covers up. Conor manages to find a small exposed space to make contact, and puts him out. Many want to say this was a flash KO, and Dustin just got caught, but I feel his tendencies contributed somewhat. Now, these are very early fights and it's only fair to look at how Dustin has progressed these days. These days, Dustin slips more, and he has developed some semblance of a right hook to follow up in the pocket. However, the follow-up right hook isn't really a big part of his game, and covering up is still his mainstay. For example, as you can see in the latest Hooker fight. When Hooker steps in, Dustin is mostly looking to cover and run, rather than looking to slip and counter instantly. Several times, he got caught stuck on his front foot, eating counters. I don't want to flog a dead horse, but here are more examples of Dustin getting stuck on his front foot versus Eddie. And for good measure, an example of where he got caught stuck again in the Max fight. Counter-punching isn't an area where Dustin has really evolved as a fighter, and to better illustrate my point, let's quickly look at Justin Gaethje, where there has been big changes in his skill set. As most combat geeks know, Justin used to be a fighter, with little head movement and shelled excessively. Except worse, he hardly retreated while shelling, leaving his midsection open. My video here explores this vulnerability further. Now, under Trevor Whitman, this tendency has changed a lot. Here you can see, Justin's tendency to shell up has been replaced with slips, and a counter-hook one in the pocket. This was on glorious display in the Tony Ferguson fight. Here, you can see as he steps in with his right, and weight transfers to his left foot, he's not focused on immediately shelling up. Instead his shoulder is loaded, ready to come up with a left hook. Here are several more exchanges, highlighting Justin's increased use of slips, rather than shelling. The contrast in defensive tendencies is night and day. It's not just the upper body though. While he's slipping, his weight is transferring smoothly between right and left leg, with no wasted movement. This weight transfer, along with the slip, along with his shoulder loaded, allow him to come up quickly and powerfully with a hook in the pocket. The old days of Justin being a heavy bag, waiting to be unloaded on, are gone. Now his slipping and his left hook is a constant threat when he leads with his right overhands, and when he stands his ground in the pocket. In contrast, Dustin today still tends to get stuck on his front foot, with poor countering instincts once stuck there. More dangerously, Dustin sometimes throws a right, as he regains his balance. He has not paid much for this yet, as many flee from the threat of the right. But as you can see from this video, countering right overhands is Conor's specialty. Aside from jamming Dustin's shoulder and countering, there are two other types of strikes Conor is probably going to look for. First, if Dustin takes a more cautious approach, and decides to use his jab more, Conor is going to look to slip and counter instantly with his left. This was on display in the Diaz fight, also a southpaw, and shows what is possible if a fighter frees up his hands for punching, and just uses slips as his defense. Here you can see, Conor is slipping the jab, instantly throwing his left. He's very good at timing this, and feels very comfortable standing his ground, to deal with your first strike. Slipping to the inside, and into a southpaw's power is dangerous, but Conor has so much confidence in his head movement and bracing, he's willing to roll that dice. Conor is himself open to some kind of right hook, once he throws his left, but Dustin doesn't appear to be that kind of fighter, and will probably be looking to cover and flee, allowing Conor to keep using this left counter unpunished. But, theoretically, even if Dustin is ready to stay in the pocket and recounter, Conor is not flat-footed, even when put on his front foot after throwing his left. Typically, he's already pushing off his front foot to get out of the line of fire. Has Dustin developed some good countering since his last fight to catch Conor remains to be seen. Second, the other strike I see Conor trying to look for is the right hook in the pocket. You can see him getting this on Nate several times in their second fight. If Dustin is too slow in getting his guard up, a quick hook could find him. Alternatively, even if his hands come up early, Conor might find a small gap in Dustin's shelling to exploit, like how he did in their first fight. Give Conor enough chances to throw unpunished, he will eventually find his target. So is Dustin doomed? I know I sound very pessimistic, but this is MMA, not boxing. If Dustin is willing to stand his ground in the pocket, and aggressively clinch up Conor and drive him to the fence, he could drain Conor's cardio. Thing is, Conor is very likely to want to keep his distance, and use his diverse kicks, along with his in and out footwork, to keep Dustin at bay. I've already made a bunch of more detailed videos going into Conor's left hand, footwork, takedown defense and counter timing. So watch those if you haven't already, links are below. Alright, I think I've gone on longer than I should. Please do let me know in the comments how you think the fight will go. I'm going to need some major therapy after this video, so it's back to painting I go. If you would like to support these studies, do consider contributing to my Conor Nuthugger Recovery Fund, or even my Patreon. Also, if you have any ideas on what studies you would like to see, let me know in the comments below. Till next time, folks.
But the responses is why you have a co-pilot, to help you see what you can't see and start noticing that. And you have to be aware in the moment, where a lot of times people can't. They just bite down. They just bite down on that mouthpiece. And very similar to the way you used to fight was bite down, their eyes are getting big. Oh, that's my response, is like continue to do this, and they're going to fall. And again, that is a very important point, is a coach and the athlete understanding, I am there to help you with your responses. In the gym, I'm going to create your reactions. I'm going to create your patterns, your basic fundamental patterns.